It has not only broadened the possibility of running for office to a more diverse field of candidates, it has also broadened the range of issues that gets discussed. And so to begin our discussion with public financing, let me bring up someone who has used this new system for her political office. Would you all please welcome from North Carolina, Justice Judge Wanda Bryant. Wanda, why don't you start us off? You're going to sit there? You're going to come up? You do as you prefer. You can sit or you can stand.
Well, thank you. First of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be here this evening to speak with you all. And I want to thank the public campaign for making it possible to be here. Everyone has been just wonderful, wonderful group of people to work with. And I have to say that long before I ever knew exactly what the public campaign was doing, I was benefiting from the work that had gone on long before I ever started campaigning in North Carolina. I am a proud past participant in judicial campaign finance reform in the state of North Carolina. I was appointed to the North Carolina Court of Appeals in 2001, and in North Carolina, all of our judges are elected. The Constitution requires that. And at the appellate level, I had to run a statewide campaign in 2002 to try and retain my seat on the Court of Appeals. Now in North Carolina, we have 100 counties. And I met someone here from Greenville, and I know lots of other people have been, can't hear me? Oops. Okay, is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. So I know a lot of people are familiar with some parts of North Carolina and how big that state is geographically and population-wise. It was very daunting for me as a new judge on the Court of Appeals, the second highest court in our state, to try and campaign statewide to keep my seat and at the same time do the job that I had been at that point appointed to do, because the governor, I felt, reposed a lot of trust in me to handle a very big job when I had never been a judge before. I'd worked for many years as a lawyer, worked really hard, but I had never been on the bench. So I ran hard under that old partisan system, is what it was then. And we had to get out and raise money, dial for dollars, on a regular basis, not knowing how much money was coming in, where it was coming from, and all through the campaign, through the primary and up into the general election. And in fact, I learned later after the election in November of 2002 that I had money left in my campaign treasury that went unused because it didn't come in until like the week before the election, and so it wasn't used. But we had to literally raise money right up until the end of the campaign. I was not fortunate in that campaign. That was, like I said, it was a partisan election. I was one of three or four Democrats on the ballot for the Court of Appeals that year. Only one Democrat won, and none of the incumbents won our seat. And that one person that did win on the Democratic ticket took basically the year off and campaigned, and she was very, very fortunate and able to win a seat on the court. That kind of campaigning and that kind of dialing for dollars all the way through the campaign was something that I didn't want to do again. Now, I must say I was fortunate enough after losing to be reappointed to the bench before the end of the year, when another one of our judges, who was very disappointed at the outcome of the election, decided that he had been on the Court of Appeals long enough and he resigned or retired. And the governor reappointed me, so that in 2003, when I took my oath of office, I still maintained my status. But what happened is, because we have to run for election in North Carolina as judges, I had to campaign again in 2004 because I had to run at the next general election in the state, which basically meant that starting in 2003, when I took my oath again, I had to immediately start campaigning. And this time, I like to think I campaigned a lot smarter, but I immediately formed a committee, and at that point, we were looking at campaign finance reform. It was a new system. Legislators were trying to gather support for this new system, and I was one of several judges that liked what I heard about this new system that could change the way in which judges were elected at the appellate level in North Carolina. And so I early on kind of jumped on the bandwagon. I was talking with some staffers earlier about one of our leaders in North Carolina, a guy named Bob Hall. Many of you in this movement, so to speak, might know Bob Hall. But he and his organization, Democracy North Carolina, were very influential, along with a number of other organizations, I might add, like the League of Women Voters and the North Carolina Center for Voter Education. But they joined together to press for passage of the Campaign Reform Act, Judicial Campaign Reform Act. And it was passed in, I think it was about October of 2003. And I was by the governor when he signed that bill into law in 2003. Wow, I'm almost out of time. I ran in 2004 under the new system. It's a new partisan system, nonpartisan system. There are kind of three components to it. It's nonpartisan. It allows for us as judges to raise small amounts of money from large groups of people. We could raise between $10 and $500 from at least 350 registered North Carolina voters. And what that allowed me to do and others to do is to gain a lot of grassroots support at an early point in time. And to, once we raised that money before the primary and opted into this new system, then we were able to receive public funds. The public funds came from a tax checkoff that taxpayers could use. It also came from, now it's mandatory that all lawyers in North Carolina must pay a $50 fee into our campaign fund or into the public fund for use in judicial elections. And others can actually contribute directly. But there's no more PAC money. You can't take any individual contributions after the primary season. So what that does, as a candidate, someone like myself who's also working and running, it allows you to have a budget as of the primary season to be able to set your budget, know how much money you have to run your campaign from then through November, and know exactly what you're going to do with that money because you know how much you have and you can already make your media buys and that kind of thing. A very, very different system from 2002. It also, the new law, allows for a voter guide. That was one of the most substantial parts of the judicial campaign finance reform in North Carolina, in my opinion, because that voter guide went out to every registered, or the household of every registered voter in the state of North Carolina. And what that did was inform voters, because nobody knew about appellate judges. We're a kind of obscure group. We don't get out and campaign like the other Council of State races and the governor's races and those kinds of things. We're under the radar, but we also are on the ballot. So it was most important for voters to be informed about the judges that they were electing to their second highest court. And so that voter guide gave information immediately to all citizens in the state, and it did so based on money from the fund. So what we have now are voters going to the polls with more information than they've ever had, and we have judges that are able to take part in a system that reduces the influence of large money contributions, because no one can give over $500 in these judicial elections. And like I said, it has to be prior to the primary. So this has had a great impact. Right now we have 7 races up in our appellate courts, 1 on the Supreme Court, 6 on the Court of Appeals. 12 of those people campaigning have opted in to this new Judicial Campaign Finance Reform Act and are running. I think by all accounts, everyone I've talked to, everyone I know that knows anything about it, feels like it has been just a tremendous help with respect to judicial campaign elections in the state of North Carolina. I have a lot more I can say about it. I'm very, very much an advocate for it, but I think my time is up. Thank you very much.
Well, we thank you. You know,